Hello everyone and welcome. We're going to be giving a last 60 seconds for some folks to jump on the line, so just bear with us and we will get started very shortly. Thanks. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So hello and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Michael Burke with Interdyne BMI. We just have a few housekeeping items to go over before we begin. The first is an overview of our free upcoming webinars hosted throughout October. You can find more information about each webinar in the events page on our website, and this is also where you'll find a link for registration. The next upcoming webinars are on October 4th, and we'll focus on getting started with Fantasy Sales Team, which is a new feature found in Dynamics CRM, as well as a second webinar covering upgrading from Management Reporter to Jet Reports for GP. And also, we're excited to announce that we'll be rolling out a retail webinar series, so make sure you sign up for the dates below. These will be occurring once a month and will take off December and February. And we're covering a variety of topics, but if you're interested in something that you don't see here, then just send us a message and we can take a look at adding it to the schedule. Next, you can also join Interdyne BMI at this year's User Group Summit. This year will be hosted in Tampa, Florida from October 11th to the 14th, which is coming up here. This covers the main Dynamics product line, so AX, CRM, GP, and NAV. And all Interdyne BMI clients can get 10% off registration. So if you have still yet to register, then you can reach out to marketing@interdynebmi.com. And we're having a brunch before the conference, and everyone is welcome. So please let us know if you can attend. And during the conference, we have BMI team members as well as clients speaking during the summit. And of course, BMI will be hosting a party, so stay tuned for more details on that. And today we'll be focusing on RevUp reporting, Management Reporter, easy to use features and facts to increase productivity. And your presenter today will be Deb Gernatz from Interdyne BMI. Just last items to go over before we begin. We started the call by muting everyone, so if you have any questions during today's presentation, please use the question box feature or the raised hand icon, which are both located on the dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll be recording this session and uploading to YouTube. And lastly, we'll have some time for Q&A with Deb at the end of today's webinar, and that's when we'll be covering all the questions that have been submitted. So with that, that should cover all the housekeeping, so I'll change the presenter back to you, Deb, and I'll let you know when we can all see your screen. Okay, coming in clear.
All right, so I'm starting at the top of yours. Let's go skip through yours and we'll move on down to my slide deck. Here we go. This is a little short something about myself. I started using Great Plains way back in 1989, so I've watched it evolve through the years, so it's been fun. And I'm always trying to find new quick ways to help people get their job done and enjoy what they're doing. So that's kind of my goal for myself, is to help you guys help yourself out. So I'm going to go through some reporting tips and then some executive reporting online and then some questions and answers. So first thing we do is show you some tips. And one of the tips is I want y'all to use your attributes. When you're building your columns, build your reports, use those attributes. If I use the attributes, then I can produce a very nice detailed trial balance to dump out to Excel and easily sit there and mark lines I need more information about, send it to AP clerk, AR clerk, whoever I need to go pull data to help me figure out why this got posted where it did. Using those attributes means I don't have to run a report, manage reporter, and then run to inside of Great Plains and print a trial balance inside of Great Plains, or dump a smart list to get the information. I can get all that information one stop. Run the report is financial account, transaction. You have to do it to the transaction level and get that information. The piece that you have to know is you have to have at least one period that is not set at Y2D, but it's set at periodic to make the report work. Something else that people don't do very often is use that missing account analysis. As companies grow and evolve, they add new account numbers. Those new account numbers don't always make it to those management reporter rows. If I use this missing account analysis tool, it allows me to go in and let the system tell me what accounts I'm missing. The system looks at each row that's assigned, that's out there as a building block, and it says, look at the smallest number in that row format to the largest number in that row format and tell me if I'm missing anything in between. If I'm missing anything, it'll show up, just like I have it showing up down here on one that doesn't work for me. And it's telling me 1590, which happens to be one of my asset accounts, does not show up on my balance sheet. I would need to go in and add it to my report so that I would no longer be out of balance. Instead of me finding why I'm out of balance, this tool finds those accounts and adds them. Now, if I have a problem in my formulas, I still would have to fix that, but if it's just because I'm missing accounts, it will tell me what I'm missing. Unit accounts. Most people don't use their unit accounts as much as they could. If I'm using unit accounts, I can do calculations. My example here is I have the number of admin employees. I know how many there are. I know what their wages are. So I can go in there and figure out an average for the admin wages. So I can take my full-time equivalent employees, divide it by my wages, and figure out what my average is. Maybe I want to know what is it costing me using my cost of goods sold and my revenue, looking at my pieces of how many telephone installations I have. I could do a calculation that my cost for every one of those installations is giving me a particular number. If it goes up or below what I want it to be, I need to figure out why I'm moving so much. So if I'm not getting that return that I'm looking for, using some of these statistical information helps me find where my changes are happening in my financials. There are lots of sample reports that are installed by default in most installations. Sometimes your predecessor might have asked you not to put the sample reports in, so we didn't install them. If you will download them, if you get nothing else but the columns and not get the rows work beautifully with the Fabricon company but not with your personal company. If you go and get those columns, you can use those for all of your reports and not have to build a bunch of columns by hand. So it saves you time, but also gives you examples of how to build reports. One of the most common things people ask for is a cash flow. So if you download the sample of the cash flow, then you can have it as a basis to start your own cash flow for your company. So this is telling you how to go in and grab these and get them installed. So I would go to Tools, and then I would go to Import Default Reports. And then once I imported them, I can bring them in and start using them. One of my other pieces that I like to do is use my comments. If I'm just scanning my financial report and I'm looking at it and I don't understand why this number has grown so large, then I can highlight a row and click on the word comments. At the very bottom it says add comment, and I can sit there and type, why has this changed the way it has? I need this to be researched, send me the detail for this account number. Whatever I need to say, send it out to the people that are helping me do my reconciliations each month and have them pull data. We can work together, get it done, but at least all my notes of why things look odd to me are all written down. My thoughts are out there. If I put the comments in on this page and then I go hit the download button, those comments will be exported out to Excel just like all the rows of data. So it will line up and I can review it, and it's printed. I can send it out. Other people can start helping me get the answers and get these things fixed. There are other times that people build reports consistently where my account numbers are always on my rows, whereas my departments, my divisions, my other pieces of my segments are showing up on the columns or they're showing up on the trees. So what I'm trying to say is flip your thinking. Maybe I want to report, I want to know how one department is operating. I can have my account for my row be my division. And at this point, I have administration, accounting, sales. Now, I did not set up the database. They used the word division. Those are departments for me. So, yes, you're seeing what you're seeing. But I wanted to get a report and know just how my sales is this month. How much revenue have they generated? What is the cost for that division? I can go look at it. I can build it. And then on my rows, they're set. I would go to my columns, and over on my columns, I'm going to come in and change it where I have what series of account numbers I want to look at. So I have my salaries and wages in one column. I have my merchandise I bought in another column. So I'm doing it by columns instead of doing it by rows. So it's just a way of twisting the data around and looking at it a different way. There are a lot of times when, especially when I'm doing payroll, I do not want people to drill past just the total in the account number. So I can use these commands to keep people from, once the report's generated on the screen, double click on it and drill back. I can drill back, I can look at the total for the account, but I cannot look at all of the detail. So if I use the XD, it says I'm not going to see it in the account detail report. If I use an XT, they cannot see the individual transactions report, but they can see the total in the account, but they cannot drill to see the transactions. Because the way payroll posts inside of Great Plains, it posts in detail. I know by person's name their gross wages when it hits that gross wages account. If I had put the information in there and using those attributes, and I said I want to know the originating ID and the originating master name, then I would be able to see an employee's ID and employee's name and their gross wages, which is why most people will turn off the drill back feature, at least in transaction detail, so that people cannot drill and see those accounts. Now, most of the time, they'll take that same report and they make an executive income statement, and then they have a different one that they use for other people. So you can duplicate your report, and one of them have the XT and XD commands on it, and one of them doesn't have it on there. So if I'm upper management and I'm entitled to see the information, then it's turned off. If it is other people, they do not want to see people's wages, then they have to run the other report. There are other times I want to do side-by-side reports using some columns in format code. So what happens here is I set up my column. My column's going to have the description coming from my rows. I'm going to have my period information. I'm going to have my year-to-date information. Then I go in and I set up a row that has the example on the screen is profit and loss, and then my balance sheet. I use this column command, and when I generate my report, I'm going to get a report that looks like this. I have, here is my profit and loss, the piece that I had set up, and here is my balance sheet. That being said, I'm going to minimize, I'm going to pause here hopefully. So I'll do it in a minute. I will, after this session's over, I will go to the end of my slide deck and I'm going to come back and show y'all this report in action. So if I suppress my descriptions and underscores, and I can use that for related rows. So what I have done is I set up a new column that says that my descriptions in column A, I'm going to use my account number and my no print in column B. My current month periodic is in C, my beginning balance, current balance Y to D, and my calculation is E minus D to figure out my net change. So what it looks like when I'm trying to do this suppress is I'm using an if-then statement to say that if something is 0, then I want it to no print. And I'm using this row 1611 to say it's no print. So it says if my 1611, my total is 0, and my column F is 0, then L1611, which is a no print row, I don't want it to show up. So 1601, and I marked this one 1601, it's only going to show if everything in here is not 0. As soon as it's 0, it's no longer going to print. So it's just a way that I can use commands to say, if this section of my report has no answers to return, I don't want the description to show, I don't want the accounts to show, I don't want the underscores to show, I want nothing to show. So I can also do conditional printing. So if I only wanted to have my credit balance show up, I could use the CR command. If I only wanted to have my debit balance showing, I could show my debit balance. Another example, instead of using this revenue account to use it, would be I have due to, due from. If it has a debit balance, I want it in my assets. If it has a credit balance, I want it down in my liabilities. So I'd have that account number show up twice in my report and have it declare if it's debit, please bring it into this row, whereas if it's credit, please bring it into my liabilities row. So people don't always use those debit and credit commands, but it's a nice way of being able to declare where I want information to show up. Another example is instead of showing all of the revenue the way I am, and down below this revenue it's going to be all of the returns and my discounts. So I could say if this series account numbers 4100 to 4999, if it is a credit, put it on the first row, my sales. But on the second row, it use my sales returns and discounts. I can go down and say if my total is a debit balance, I want it to show up on a second row. Even though it's the exact same series of account numbers, I'm declaring what I want to show up on the row without having to list all of the account numbers. I can just do it as a range of numbers. It just helps in making a report smaller, and it makes it more precise where I want data to show up. I do it every time. So in executive reporting, we do lots of fun things on executive reporting. We can go in and decide that I want to go to a particular area of the report when it opens up. So as soon as it generates, I would click the Go To, and I could choose which area of my report that I want to go to. Once I go to the area, I can click, drill back, look at all the information, but instead of scrolling up and down to find what you're looking for, you could go immediately to the area that you want and then decide what account number I want to look at. So then there are times that I want to collapse the lines and show the information only in summary view. So to do that, I'm using this show button, and I click show me my summary lines only, and I want my header and footer to show up. As soon as I uncheck it, I go back to having it in detail again. If I click on any of the rows, I still get to see all of the detail. When I have reports that I know that I need to print for a manager's workbook that he likes, I will go in and I will use report groups. Report groups allows me to choose more than one report, and then I can generate all the reports at one time. So my example here is they want to have a balance summary, they want to have a cash flow, and they want to have the P&L detail. When I generate these report from this report group, all three generate at the same time, and then I can choose which one I want to look at one at a time after it generates up to the screen. So what it saves me is running one, publishing it, running another one, publishing it, etc. I do them all at the same time, and I can publish them all at the same time instead of doing them one at a time. When it generates, it will do like you're seeing on the screen. I will get a box for each one of the reports, and at that point I can double click on any of the reports and review them online, or I can go immediately to the download button, and when I download, it downloads all the reports into one Excel instead of numerous Excels. If I have them set to financial account and transactions, I'm going to have a tab for every one of those, but for each one of the reports, and I will get it all. There are times that people like to say that I only want managers to see certain areas of a report that they are entitled to see. So you want to set up tree level security. So let's say that I have my sales department manager only needs to see the sales section of the financials. My repairs and maintenance division needs to see just the repairs and maintenance. So I can go in and use this unit security and declare which name gets to see which piece of my report. So what it effectively does is when they generate the report, they're only going to see the piece that affects them. They're not going to see all the other answers. When you're publishing your reports, by default it publishes to one location. It's the library. It's normally the library with the public underneath it, but it's going to publish to one location. I can ask the report to print in more than one location. So I can choose additional folders, or I can decide to print it to my normal library and also go print it over on SharePoint if I want to do SharePoint, because I can set up SharePoint as one of my locations. Because of security on folders, if I want the report to go in and say this is my work papers, and just my accounting group can see this folder, whereas I can send it to a second folder, and that other folder is my final version, and my different managers can get to that one. But my work papers of how I've gotten to where I am are hidden in another folder that they cannot even see, because you can set security at the library and in all the subfolders beneath it. So there are times when I need to go set those permissions. I can go into my library and I can click Add, and for every report that's in my library, you're going to see that I can choose a report, choose the name, choose the role that they are, and you can choose if they can view the report only, or can they edit the report, can they create the report, delete, or it can be inherited from a group if I set up my group rules. Most people will come in and set the reports up and say, no, they cannot delete, only certain people can delete. No, I don't want them to go in and edit a report and change my row, my column, my trees. They can view it and they can create it, but they cannot make changes and they can't delete my report. If you let too many people have rights to delete and you're not backing up your building block groups, you have no way of recovering that report short of rebuilding it. So trying to lock people out of areas that can hinder your month-end close becomes necessity if you have lots of people that are set up as designers of Management Reporter instead of just a generator or create reports. You don't want people getting in there and creating and making changes to reports. You want them to be able to be generators and not change. So using some of the security per report makes it nice that they cannot make changes to your report that you knew balanced last month. I want it to balance this month, no changes. So if I don't want it to be changed, use these permissions. So before we start the little questions and answers, I'm going to get this to close, if I can, in show. And I wanted to show y'all some things on my report. So what I have queued up here is some columns that I've built for some people that they ask for regularly. So I was going to show y'all a few of these columns. So this one that's coming up is where a person wants to run a report and they want to have their, make it big, there it goes. They want to have, looking backwards, 11 months, and they want to have their current month hanging out on the far right-hand side. What I have not added, which can easily be added, is I can insert a text that says, I want to know what my, I'll use this one. You can put your month up here across every one of these, and it's looking at your base and putting the month and looking at my base all the way down. So this says, go look at my base -1 period, -2, -3, going backwards, and so I can go in and figure out what I look like now. So it's just a creative way of trying to figure out what my last 12 months look like, 1 month at a time. Another one that I've built for somebody that's really, really large is the actual account, my budget, my remaining, and my forecast. Because basically what it's doing is it's looking at my base period. If it is less than or equal to the base, I want it to be actual. If it's greater than or equal to the base, I want it to be my budget. So what I'm doing is trying to figure out, here's how much actual I have at the very end, and then I have my remaining balance, and I have my actual plus my remaining budget. Here's my annual budget, and this is how far I'm off of what I thought my budget is. So you're basically trying to figure out, am I going to make the numbers I think I set up for my budget for the year, but it's picking up and saying, here's my total actual, my remaining. Look at it against my budget. Tell me how far off I am. So it's just a way that I can forecast to figure out what's going on. All right, so then I have the one that I set up that I wanted to show you when I was going to pause earlier is this one that I can go in and do this column that has the balance sheet and the income statement all in one report. So I'm going to choose this report and I'm going to generate it. This report I have flipped where my balance sheet's going to be to the left, my income statement is going to be to my right on the report. I just kind of, my mind tends to work that way. I like my balance sheet before my income statement, so it's how I built this one. You can build it any way you want. It doesn't even have to be your balance sheet and your income statement. I could be doing a report and declaring each one of my departments and break a column and have it come across my report. But what this is, let me blow it up, is it's showing me my balances. Here's my assets, my liabilities, owners' equity, the whole bit. Other side, here's my total sales, my cost of goods sold, my margin. So I could look at everything in one view. I'm not running two reports. I'm not having to put things side by side. It's actually one view looking at it all. And if you look at this, I know for a fact that I'm missing an account number because I'm out of balance. But at least it gives me something to go look. I have a quick view to realize that the report's out of balance. There it goes. So what I'm going to throw out there is, do y'all have some questions, or is there some type of reports that y'all want built to look at?
We do have a couple questions in the queue right now. The first is, can you show a column definition that does forecasting?
Okay, to do the forecasting, I would be using the one that I had brought up earlier, which would be the column that I have, the one that says actual budget remaining forecast. So I get this to quit minimizing. Figure out where it is. There it goes. Although this minus plus thing can drive you crazy. All right, so when you look at this and this actual budget remaining in the forecast, it's basically taking the information and it's looking at the period that I'm in, and it's going to grab my actual, and it's going to look forward to my budgets, and it's going to say, I'm forecasting I'm going to make my budgets the next, let's see, we're sitting in September, so the next 3 months I'm going to make budget. So I have 9 months of actual, 3 months of budget. I have my annual budget, and I'm comparing those informations to figure out if I'm going to make it. So I'm going to subtract, add my actuals plus my budget, subtract it from my year-to-date budget that I had put in for the year, and say, here's my variance. How far off am I? So it's a way that I can look forward in time to see if I'm going anywhere close to be my numbers, if I'm going to make it or not, or do I need to go in there and export my budget, reevaluate my budget, and put a new budget in. This is not, we're not going to make it, you know, let's go make a new budget, adjusting the last 3 periods and say this is what we now think our budget needs to look like.
Perfect. The next one in queue we just got was, can you please show a row and column definition for basic trial balance?
Okay, for a basic trial balance, if I go in, and I think I even have one built, let's see here. Here's the trial balance I have in here. And since, I want to do it by category, that's no fun. Here's a trial balance. All right, I'm going to drill back to my trial balance, and this is the simplified way of making a trial balance. I don't have to even keep inserting account numbers. By putting description, all accounts, and to the right, what it says is plus account, which would be your main segment, mine happens to be labeled account, is equal to, and there's a bracket. Inside that bracket is an asterisk, and close the bracket. It's going to go look at every account number that I have. And it's going to, and I'm taking out, it says minus 9010 through 9040. Those happen to be unit accounts. So I don't want those in my total. But if you use this command, the bracket, asterisk bracket, it's every account number. But always remember to take out those unit accounts. So what I'm going to, I'll run this for you. My columns that I have going on happen to be my description, my current period, my year to date, and I threw a couple of attributes on it. So at that point, I'm going to generate, all 3 will work. I'm going to generate this report. This is that beautiful hurry up and wait. I have a client that has 10 reports that they run each day, and they have it set up in a group. So the lady comes in, she launches her computer, launches Management Reporter, hits her group, and then goes down the hall and gets her cup of coffee, comes back, and her reports are published on her desktop. So she's got it down to art form, not to wait form. Oh, I got an error message. How about that? It doesn't like something. It did not like an answer. It doesn't have a bad account number. How about that? All right. So let's go do a trial balance the long form way. There we go. All right, that's going to work. Another thing you can look at when you're generating, if I want to see the, before I generate, a lot of times I'm going to hover on this icon to the left of the generate button, and it tells you the last time you've used this report and generated the report. So if it was earlier today and I just want to reprint it, then I can, or if I need to go ahead and regenerate it, I'd hit the generate button. If I've got bad data, I'm going to be not a, there it goes. See if I can make this smaller. Now, I'm going to show you what's wrong with this report, and I forgot about not changing this. So that's my fault. To the top. This report happens to have, I'm trying to go this way with it. There we go. This report, you notice I have all these blank rows. I'm still showing every account number, but I have lots of accounts that have 0 transactions, nothing year to date, nothing this period. If I want to change how this is showing, then what you need to do is come back to your report, go back to your settings, and right now it says I want to display rows with no amounts. I'm going to turn that off. If I regenerate the report, I'm not going to have the same problem with it having, there it goes. We'll do this. I can get to it easier. I'm not going to have the same problem with all those blank rows. I hate all the blank rows. Hello. But having all the blank rows makes it very difficult to read because you have to figure out which lines really lined up. At least for those people, after a while, that wear bifocals, you need to limit as many of these blank rows as possible. So in this version of the report, I'm going to minus it down first. Grab this. This version, I can actually see that I don't have as nearly as many accounts, but I can have all the same data, but now have all those accounts that are no longer there. So it's just a quick way of changing my report up, making it work for me, and not having to look at blank rows. But a trial balance, I can run it in here. A lot of people will run a trial balance and drop subtotals in and have, here's what my income statement total should look like. Here, if I go up above, my out of balance should be exactly what my income statement is down below. So you can do creative things with the trial balance just to see if I can do quick visuals of this is what my balance sheet should look like when it comes out by dropping some subtotals in to know what my net income is for the year. So is there any more questions in the queue?
Yeah, sorry about that. The next one we had is, can columns be rolling quarters? And also, do you have an example?
All right, so for columns being rolling quarters, I have a column that's set up, and here's rolling quarters. There's two different ones that are in here. So let's go pick on one than the other, but I have a rolling quarter here that says it's my current month. So this is my current month. It says base. Then I have one that says base minus 1, base minus 2. And then I'm looking at, so I have a quarter's worth of months showing up. And then over to the right, I have my year to date for the exact same period. So I can look at it that way. And then I have this one. It might be the same one. Oh, this one's a little bit different. I set it up where it has quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and it's looking at the information. But I've declared which month it is. It's period 1 of a year, period 1 through 2, period 1 through 3 for each month. So I'm looking at the months, my quarter, here's my 4th period, my 4th plus 5, my 4th plus 6, and I can work my way down the report. If you get really creative, you could go hide other columns like N and O and J and K and just leave column P and have it, and column L, etc., and H, and have just the summing ones if I wanted to show only the quarters and none of the other information.
Okay, well, perfect. And the last one we have in queue so far is how do you set up a column definition that looks back 11 months and has the current month?
Okay, so that would be the one I've labeled current, prior, in 11 months. So what it's doing is started left, far left is minus 11, while my column N is this current period. So or M. M is going to be my current period. So if I was running this today, then this would be 9, this would be 8, this would be 7, 6, all the way down the line. So I'm looking, my far right is going to be my most current information, my far left is my oldest information. Or you could flip the order and it's current and going minus in the other direction. But since my months in my mind, I work left to right, so oldest is left, newest is to the right, but you could change the order up however you wanted, but you would be using these base minus commands to force it to be the period that you want it to be. And if you look in this report, the very last column, I have a fill. It has 2 spaces, 2 characters in there. I like to leave a fill because if somebody comes back and asks me to add something to a report, I can highlight that last column and I can right click and I can say insert a column and it's in front of my fill. If I hadn't put a fill and they asked me to add to the end of the report, I would have to highlight this column and insert, and it would fall in front of it, and then I would have to take this column and cut it and insert or paste my information back in to move it back to the left and have my new column. So it's a lot easier to have a fill at the end and insert in front of it than it is to do the copy paste and move things around. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're building columns. That fill becomes your best friend. Anything else you have out there?
That looks like it is all the questions that have come in for now. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on, or if not, we can always get out a few minutes early here.
Well, I think that if they have questions, they can reach out, and I will be glad to do some one-on-ones with people and help them fix a little report and stuff. So have them reach out, write me questions, and we can schedule little 10-15 minute meetings and help them fix something that they need fixed.
Sounds great. Do you mind putting your contact information back up?
All right, let me get to my slide deck. And here is my, well, I can blow it up, but that's my contact information on the screen. I'll make it big. There we go. I'll make it big so make it easier to read.
There we
Since
are.
my name is not easy to spell, you need to, blowing it up makes it easier. Because the RN side by side makes it look like an M depending on where you're sitting away from the screen.
Especially with my fuzzy eyes. Well, perfect. Yeah, so if there's no additional questions, I'd just like to thank you all for attending today. If anything does come out, you can feel free to reach out to Deb or myself. And yeah, on behalf of everyone at Interdyne BMI, we just wanted to thank you for your attendance and have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, everyone.